hey everyone, welcome to our new Zoom address. There'll probably be a different one next week where I can just spend a few more minutes and set up a permanent link. But thank you for going the extra mile to get here today. I couldn't log into the other Zoom account, so here we are. And it's, as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, it's sort of funny that the week we're studying the sole trait of order, everything kind of goes haywire. So here we are. It's a little joke from the universe. But we'll get started the way we always do with a short meditation. So please relax in your seat and close your eyes. And take in a deep breath through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And again, inhale through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And as you go at your own pace of inhaling through the nose and holding, and exhaling through the mouth and holding. If thoughts should come into your head, just observe them and let them go. Like watching a car move past on the road. Now is not the time for solving problems. Right now, all you need to do is inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And on your next inhale, say to yourself, Shema. And on the exhale, listen. Shema, listen. In Shema, we're listening deeply, without judgment, without offering advice. In Shema, we are listening with an open heart. Shema, listen. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. Okay. Well, today, before we get started on order, we'll do like a little postscript on gratitude. And I'm wondering, did any of you try a gratitude practice last week? Or maybe how did gratitude sort of show up for you? Either a time you were challenged and maybe you could have been more grateful, or a time you use gratitude to de-stress a little bit. I can give a little bit of that right now, just feeling grateful that you all found your way here through the snafu. And yeah, so would anyone else care to share something from the past week? Yes, Carrie.
I hadn't written in my gratitude journal for a while. I was making notes in my daily journal, but I got the gratitude journal out again and started looking through it. And recovering from COVID has been difficult. So I've been making notes of gratitude about the little increments of recovery, and just reminding myself that things will be okay eventually. You know, it's been good. It's been good practice.
Good. Well, I hope I'm wishing you healing and
Thank you. I'm getting there.
Recovery continues. Your recovery continues. Sue.
I haven't been here in a while, but I wanted to say I had a great, there's a great gratitude practice that I did last week that I do every Shabbat. And we did it, we had guests last week, and it was particularly meaningful for people who have never done it before, doing it the first time. Before we do our blessings on Shabbat, we pass the tzedakah box, we put a coin in, and we say something we're thankful for, what we're grateful for, something that happened during the week. So, and it's really, everybody who comes to our table thinks it's the best thing to think about the week that's gone by and what we're grateful for. And when our kids were little, even somebody smiling at you or opening a door, is little things you can be grateful for. So I just wanted to share that it's always wonderful to take a moment to be grateful, and at that moment, and think about the week that passed.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Sue. That's a wonderful practice. And it's great to tie that to tzedakah as well. Remembering what we have and tying that with the act of giving to another. That's beautiful. Nancy.
Yeah, I just wanted to be grateful and say thank you to those who are here today, who were a part of last week's and getting me through this week. And I really appreciate some of the wisdom that you shared and helped me with. And with that, I had bits and pieces of gratitude all week. And part of that, I think, has to do with really listening to my heart and my integrity. And I actually did what some of you mentioned for me to do. I went back to the place. I said something, and other people had also been concerned about what this person had done. And I am at peace now with not ever going back to the class. And I feel that even the director of the center said it was unethical, and couldn't believe what she was doing and going back, to this length. And I think that the gratitude has to do with all those little minuscule things that I see in everyday life. And I've had just a really grateful week. And so I just wanted to thank you to all of you, and you know what I'm talking about.
Thank you, Nancy. So glad you're at peace. Anyone else? Okay, well, let's dig into order a little bit. So may I have a volunteer to unmute and read this first bullet?
I'm reading. This is the trait of order, allocating a set time for each and every thought and analysis, freeing time and space for each and every affair in the world of action, and demarcating the bounds of each with set boundaries so that one not intrude upon the other. Rabbi M.M. Lefin of Satanov, Cheshbon HaNefesh.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Joanne. Okay, I'm going to stop the share, and then I'm going to copy and paste this into the chat. So this is it's kind of a juicy one. And this is one of he was Ukrainian, so this was a Ukrainian Mussar book. This is the one that he secretly was modeling this book on Ben Franklin's 13 Virtues. And a lot of our practices like daily journaling and having mantras sort of came from Cheshbon HaNefesh and Ben Franklin before. So what are some of the things that stand out for you about the trait of order as defined by Rabbi Lefin? Yeah, Carrie.
It's just a quick thought, but after I read it, I thought, that's a daytimer book. That's just a daytimer journal. Mark down everything, make a time for it, and block everything out. That doesn't do the last part, which is to set boundaries and stuff. But that's what I saw in my head,
Yeah,
and I think it's really hard to do all that.
it is. Nice aspiration. It's certainly hard for me. I'm not on the, I'm more organized than I used to be. And man, to say I'd be keeping up with a regular weekly Mussar class for 3+ years, that is not something that was I would have anticipated. But getting a newsletter out twice a month fairly regularly, that's not, something that's within my wheelhouse either. But we can learn, we can grow. Joanne.
Yeah, I also feel like that's very challenging what he said. Like it's for me, to have like demarcations between one thing and the next thing. And I've been, I think I'm ADD, and I get distracted and then I get up and do something else, or I'm in the kitchen and I see something else that needs to be done. Instead of doing the thing I'm supposed to be doing, I do something else. Then I lose track of time. So I find that very challenging.
Yeah, he's kind of setting the bar high. So we'll have either Frank or Linda and then Sue. Hey, Marjorie, welcome. I'm glad you made it.
These kind of thoughts or teachings take me back some years. We were up in Maine and made some friends up there. And I remember we came back and visited, and we visited this older couple, and I overbooked. And at some point I said we're going to be needing to leave, and he let me have it.
Hmm.
And it was really embarrassing.
Hmm.
And it is so well kind of states it, that when we make plans, whatever they are, how to protect that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. And there is such an important level of relationality, which is tied to order, which I think is really easy to overlook. But there have been a number of times over the last few years when I've been busy and I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to have lunch with so-and-so tomorrow, and maybe I should reschedule. And my wife said, that's a really bad habit. It's like if someone has taken the time to put you on their calendar, you should stick with it unless there's an emergency or unless you're sick or something. And I said, you're absolutely right. I will get up a half an hour early if I need to, because yeah, this person's, as I said. Sue, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't do I just put my hand
That's
up.
okay. I was just
But the thing
trying
that
to
struck
remember.
me, when we first we first read that was the set boundaries. That really hit me, like, oh, boundaries, okay? Because I have lists of things to do, but that's really important, right? When something else encroaches, and I wanted to echo to what Joanne said, because I kind of had that ADHD thing. I'm working on something and then something else, or, oh, hey, I'm going to check my Facebook, but wait a minute, I didn't finish the thing I was supposed to finish. So that's, I love order and I love making lists, but sometimes I don't, I go to something else and I don't set, like, I think a boundary or maybe even a time limit. Sometimes it helps me. I know when trying to get things done, I actually do a list and I say, okay, by 3 o'clock, I'm going to get that done. and I guess that's setting a boundary.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise I won't do it and I'll do something else. I get just easily distracted unless I have a deadline, or I make a deadline for myself. I guess that's it. But I think the setting the boundaries is really important.
Yeah, I'm so glad you commented on that, because that one struck me as well. I was like, ooh, I never thought of that. But it reminds me when I was writing the spiritual practice of good actions, I was part of like a write your book class, and there was a certain methodology, and one of them was how many minutes in a row can you write, like really golden minutes. And so I said, I think I can go 20 minutes. So you would like set a timer and you would say a little mantra, and then you would like write, and that worked. Like sometimes I went 25 minutes, sometimes I went 30 minutes. Sometimes at 18 minutes, I was kind of pooping out, but it really helped me concentrate. Like having that boundaried time really made a difference. And the whole ritual of setting my phone and, all of that kind of helped me get going. Any other thoughts? Well, while we're talking about boundaries and order, since we started late today, do we want to kind of go an extra 5 or 10 minutes, or do we want to sort of end at our normal ending time? Do people have a preference?
I
Do
just personally cannot stay late.
Okay. But people who can stay late, maybe just give a little thumbs up if that's okay. So I think we have critical mass, and if people need to go early, that's perfectly okay. And we are recording, so you can pick up whatever nuggets were missed, should you desire. Okay, so we're going to go back to the slides, and we're going to look at the spectrum of order and the mantra for order, which I think really touches on what some of you were talking about. So, Sue, since you were just talking about this, maybe you could read the mantra for us.
Sure. First things first and last things later.
Thank you. All right, so that's from Pirkei Avot, and as our dear friend Carol used to say about this one, first things first and last things never. So yeah, so what is Pirkei Avot telling us? How does this fit into our discussion? Yeah, Nancy.
Yeah, unfortunately, I had to leave for whoever spoke. I missed the whole thing, but so if I say something that you did, I'm sorry. But this really resonates with me because I'm not a procrastinator for, this is going to be weird to say, but things that need to be done. But like if I know something needs to be done or I see something that's done, I just do it right away because like why wait? But on the other hand, there are those things that some of us never want to do, like cleaning the toilet or cleaning the shower, and so to me, those feel like, do they really have to be done? Well, someday they do. And unfortunately, sometimes they have to wait a little bit longer. But I am such an orderly person that it feels good, because I know what to expect on every given day and it all gets done. It's like a part of a puzzle that I put together. And so my procrastination has never gotten me into trouble. And so I feel that that's what this is about. First things first, what's ever really, really, really important, just do it. It's done. You don't have to think about it. The other can wait.
Nice. Thank you. It's Paul or Carrie.
One thing I've learned over the last 15, 20 years, because I've had lots of illnesses that have affected me day to day, is that I figure out what my optimal time is to do certain things, particularly in the morning. That's when I can think the clearest. So that's when I'll do the stuff that requires the brain, so to speak, and like finances or any crap like that. But the one thing that has been hard is to set aside time for my art practice. And this past couple of weeks, I kind of stayed around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'm trying to balance the need to do the brain stuff first thing in the morning and still have space and time for the art practice. But it's something I've always had to juggle, especially when I'd be going through treatments and have no brain space whatsoever. So I think it's quite a challenge, especially as you get older, to balance that stuff all out.
Yeah, so that's a whole other aspect of order. What times are good for me during the day to do certain
Right.
things?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Sue, and then Linda.
I wanted to echo that. I think I have certain like really peak times that I can get stuff done. So I think that's a really good point. My comment was that when I read that, I thought of the word prioritize, because I think it's really important, what are your first things and what are your last things? And how do you determine what I'm going to do first and what I'm going to do later? And I think it's a matter of prioritizing too. That's very important. And sometimes the last things are the things you don't want to do. And I've often thought about this. Maybe that's something I could try this week, but put the things I don't want to do first, because then I'll just get them done, rather than leaving them to last and then I don't do them.
Yeah.
So that's just a thought.
Yeah, that's another piece of it. What is the first thing? We could spend an hour trying to figure out what the first thing is, Great procrastination strategy. Paul.
Yeah, there's something that I've been aware of that, for a very long time, I really aspired to do things like checklists, and I just never, I would make a checklist and I totally ignore it. And something over the last year is that I have started to get a bit of the joy of checklists, and maybe it's because of checking them off. And part of it is spending time with my mom, who's a huge checklist person, and also with Carrie, who makes she's got things that she does, even though she might struggle with it, but still it's very important to have those things to check off. So the other part of this that's been really important for me is to see that I need to make time for things that I value. And I think that I would get caught up in things that I think I'm supposed to do, and getting that would kind of screw up my thinking. So I couldn't really align my true willingness to go right in, like Nancy was saying, and just get some things done. If it was something I felt like was being imposed on me, then it might go first on the list, but I would do everything else first, because really I wasn't going to do that. So it's been really interesting for me to take a look at it from that perspective, that if I really value something, then that really is something I need to make sure that I do. And it becomes more of something that comes from inside and not something that I'm feeling is being imposed from outside. So that's part of what I think the shift is as well. So.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. And that kind of relates a little bit to the relationality piece. It's like, is this for me? Is it for someone else? And do I think it's fair? And, do I want to do this? And so all of that plays into order as well. Linda.
I just want to say that I have a lot of admiration for you guys for being willing to challenge yourself in this arena, which is so easy for some of us just to skip. I know we haven't been here in a while, and I regret that. I have this fantasy that there's this invisible wind that kind of moves through the apartment, that shuffles the papers on my desk. And of course, it's not me that does it, it's this wind. But I do wonder at how often at the end of the day, there was something that I claimed I wanted to do that I didn't do. Like, where did that time go? And I can't, sometimes I think I should just write down everything that I do and then look back to see why didn't I do that? And in some ways, Frank and I are great partners because we balance each other out. But in this one, I think we kind of not egg each other on, but we both complain at the end of the day. I don't know where my time went. I didn't do what I said I was going to do, and we'd like to be more accountable to ourselves and each other. Like you guys, I feel like you're being willing to be accountable to each other. So hats off.
Thank you, Linda. We're listening with an open heart, and this is, it's not easy, and some people are more naturally in balance, and some are not. Nancy, I see your hand. I'm going to share just one thing before we hear from you. Just as coming back to the spectrum diagram, and just reminding us that the object is not to be as orderly as possible. And sometimes if we are too orderly, that can get us into trouble, which, on the extremes, it can become obsessive, and, most of us can still have too much order or feeling very rigid, or if the plans change, we get really mad and stressed out. And then having too little order, things can get really chaotic. And that also can be very stressful. And none of you can see the desk that this computer is sitting on, but it's a big pile of stuff. So there's a lot of different ways that this one can manifest. Okay, so back to Nancy.
I think this is what I was going to say. But when Linda said something about where does the time go, that just kind of hit me, because the things that I don't do, which I always want to do all those little things to fit into my puzzle every day, it's because those are the ones I really don't want to do. But it's because I think they're going to take so long, or it's like overwhelming. So paper, shredding, filing, doing the shower. So the other day I thought, you know what? It's time now to do that shower. And do you know, I actually had fun in there, and it didn't take me as long as I thought it would. And that's what keeps me from doing something. So it's like, once you kind of get into it, it's more overwhelming before you actually start. And then it's done, and it didn't take me any time at all, and it's clean. And that's what when I sometimes feel like if I don't have the time, or where did the time go, it's because it was too overwhelming for even to begin.
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. Yeah, I think that's a good segue to our activity for the breakout rooms. And the way that we make progress in bringing balance to our soul traits is by taking action, is finding something we can do that's a little step out of our comfort zone. And so in the chat, I'm going to paste sort of a list of possible actions. And maybe I'll pull them up on the share screen too. And so what I'd like you to do is sort of take a look and maybe pick one of these or some other action you can do to bring yourself towards balance, to do a little bit more or a little bit less, to bring you towards more order or towards less order. Scheduling an activity, that thing which I really wanted to do, maybe I'm going to put it on my calendar so there'll be a time, kind of with Sue's technique. Or maybe I'm going to do a partial cleanup. The whole desk is too much, but the left side of the desk, that isn't so overwhelming. Maybe it's unsubscribing from emails. So everyone can sort of take a minute and think about it, and then discuss, with your partner. Again, we don't want to give each other advice, and we just want to kind of listen and without judgment. Oh, I see how this works. There we go. Okay. So, Joanne, I don't know. I know you said you needed to leave early and for your mom's yard site. So I just want to say, while I remember, may her memory be a blessing.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, so the rooms are open. Everyone, welcome back. We have a good chunk of time to sort of talk about those discussions, and we may even be able to fit in another quote afterwards. We'll see. So would anyone care to share? What is something that you are going to commit to for the next week that you will try to practice order?
I can to start. I don't know, like if I'm on my phone. I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I don't have any of the icons on my phone. And then you've got to go to another screen and tap to speak. So I apologize for just starting, but I'm going to start. So for me, it was definitely about starting. Well, there were 2 points. One was like start something and start small, because I'm like easily overwhelmed, and both my partner and I found we both had like paper that sits there, and or like, you go to conferences, conventions, and you get swag bags and they give you these things that's like, what do I need like a nail file or a pen or all these things. And for me, it's also become, I feel guilty about just throwing things away. I start thinking about environmental issues, like just tossing things and like, can it be recycled? So then I start recycling bins, and it's like, just get rid of it. So I did bring a box to Goodwill last week with like a lamp that I blew up, or some like clothes anyway, we have a garage sale in my synagogue. It wasn't good enough for that, but anyway, Goodwill said that they would take care of the lamp. They recycle. There are things that they could use that I couldn't imagine they could. At least the guilt was a little alleviated by having them get rid of it and not me. But yeah, there's a lot of little things. And next time I go to a conference, just don't even take the swag bag. Don't bring these things in. Get rid of more than I get in. So that was, yeah. So I'm going to go tap to mute now.
Okay. Thank you, Marjorie. Good capturing of issues, and sounds like a good intention. And I was really new in the corporate world. I took a class in time management because I was terrible at it, and reminded me of one of the only thing I remember from that class, and it was a pretty good thing, is when the task is big, she called it Swiss cheesing, where you just slice the task into little eaty bits. And so each small thing is pick something really small, so small you can't possibly fail, as a way to get started. And so it looks like Paul is next.
Yeah. So Carrie and I have been talking about our basement, which is the vortex of chaos in our house. So Carrie was talking about a particular section that if the two of us went over to it and just spent some time on that one section without getting distracted by all the other things that are happening, that we could make some really good progress. And she has some ideas about it. It's an area that she has for her stuff and how she could better organize it. And I'm more than happy to work with her on doing that. She would zone it, she says. So it's not the whole basement, which is really important, and it's a section that sort of makes sense for her, so then we can work together. And
It's
that's
nice
our plan.
that he's unemployed.
Yeah, benefits. There are benefits. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Anyone else care to share something they will commit to? Yeah, Stephanie, and then Sue.
Well, I'm just not an orderly person, I guess. I mean, first of all, I hate to clean. I hate to put things in its place. If I use something, I leave it wherever I want. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't, because I certainly have a small space and can trip over things easily. But I'm willing to change and to create some order, and I got some good tips in my group. I think first of all, setting a timer, and I love your comment, Greg, about the Swiss cheese. I, just to something really simple and quick. And I think if I could do that a little bit each day, that I wouldn't be so hard on myself about, why can't I ever find things, or why can't I put things in the right place? Sometimes I do kind of get down on myself for not being more organized. Like what's wrong with you that you can't put your keys always in the same place, or so I think I it's definitely something I want to work on. I recognize that, but I also think little steps of doing things each day will really help me, I think.
Yeah, these
That's
small steps, they're the whole game. If you can do one small step, that is the whole game, because we can kind of get into a virtuous cycle, where it's like, oh, wow, that really made my life better. I'm reminded, and I think I wrote about this, for the first time I was doing order, I realized that every night I was like, couldn't find my pajamas, and I would get pissed off and stressed out about it, and I don't sleep very well. And so, like, spending a minute looking around my room and the bathroom. So I said, all right, I'm just going to put my pajamas under my pillow every morning. And that one tiny little thing like changed my life. It was just like so easy. And I remember writing to, I can't remember who the moderator was about this. They're like, yeah, and if you think about it as like emulating the divine, would God lose their pajamas every day? Probably not. So, which I thought it didn't really resonate with my theology, but I thought it was a really funny comment. Um, so yeah. Sue.
So I consider myself a fairly orderly, organized person. I have the calendar, I have things written, I have the checklist, but I've been noticing, like, after a week ends, I highlight the things I didn't get done. And then the week comes and it's the same thing that I didn't get done from last week. So what I'm thinking of, it's the things I don't want to do. And I think it's a combination of things that people have mentioned. I think it's going to take longer. I don't like to clean, things like that. So one thing I think I'll do for next week is, when I make my list of things to do, I'll put the first thing is to do one of those things, the things I don't want to do, and get it off the list. I mean, I think I'll be a lot happier, and it'll probably take a lot less time than I thought it was going to. So that's one thing I talked about in my group. And then the other thing is that we both felt that when we do give things away, because we're both going to work on cleaning our papers, this week, that we feel better, that when we actually get rid of stuff, it's a good feeling. It's like a freeing feeling, but it just takes so long to do, but once we do it, it feels good. So that's something to remember, the feeling afterwards.
Remembering the feeling afterwards. Thank you, Sue. So it looks like Carrie is sitting forward. So that's my guess.
I just had a thought. I hate shredding, but my grandson loves it, and so does my granddaughter. So if anybody has a lot of shredding, if we've got a kid around, just put the bag in front of them, show them how to do it, and it's done. It's done. They will do it for an hour or so and be very happy. The other thing I did at one time is I timed myself. How long does it really take to empty the dishwasher? How long does it really take to make the bed, and mundane things like that? And when I discovered that it's like maybe 60 to 90 seconds, I felt relieved. I thought, well, I can do that. I can spend 5 minutes and get 6 things done, and it was a relief. It was really I didn't dread all that stuff as much. So find a kid, get your box of papers, you'll be good.
And do you rent out your grandchildren? Can we, borrow them potentially?
I'm sure you can find one on the street. I'm convinced. Or go to a daycare.
How many people, we're talking a lot about getting rid of stuff. How many people are familiar with Marie Kondo? So most people are. She wrote a book, which was a bestseller, and my wife read it. And then she has a Netflix show. It's about tidying up. And one of her, and she wrote a follow-up book called Sparking Joy. And she has a whole method. And it's like for your clothes, you take every piece of clothing you own and you put it on your bed. And you pick up everything. And then you say, does this spark joy? And if it does, you keep it. And if it doesn't, you thank it for its service, and then you put it in a pile and you give it away. And so I've never done this whole practice, but there was, I cannot remember the name of the rabbi, but he would, this kind of goes back to gratitude, where he would be like, when he would get rid of a pair of shoes, he would wrap it in newspaper just to kind of, and thank them for doing, taking care of his feet. And then he would sort of throw them away in a dignified way. So it's a way that we can bring a gratitude practice together with an order practice. Because if it's not, and it might help kind of reframe, like if I've certainly got into that sort of hamster wheel that Marjorie was talking about a little bit, where I feel bad about throwing things away, or geez, maybe I'll need this. And so it's sort of a way of reframing and bringing in sort of one soul trait to help us with another, is to kind of bring in gratitude to do that. I don't know, has anyone ever tried the KonMari method? Yeah, Nancy, what was your experience?
Well, it was both positive and negative. And after I did it, I read some testimonials of people, and they had the same feeling I did, that it was very unhealthy for them, because I still regret these 2 jackets that I got rid of. And I went through the whole thing. I took out all my clothes. I put the pile. Does it give me spark? But I was listening to other people like, well, oh, that doesn't look good on you. Get rid of it. And I should not have gotten rid of those 2 things. And it kills me that I did. And the same thing with some books. So I think she has a really good kind of premise of like, this could really get you there. But if you take it too seriously, you can get rid of stuff that really meant a lot to you, that you're very upset that you don't have anymore.
Yeah,
there's a whole thing about where to put things too. After you find that they give you spark, then you put them in an area that will mean something to you. That's a whole nother one. But she's very interesting.
Yes.
Thanks, Nancy. Thanks.
Paul or Carrie?
It's me. I read all her books. Also, now that she has kids, she's lightened up on the organization and tidying up. But another thing I learned, I don't know if it was from her or somewhere else, to take pictures of things that you really don't need or use anymore. So take pictures of them if you want to hold on to the memories they evoke. And then give them away. And when I give stuff like that away, I'm making somebody else happy. I'm gifting something to, whatever. I don't feel like I'm losing anything. I feel like I'm giving and doing a good deed. And that's how I approach the clothes, everything that I get rid of now, which it's gotten much, much easier to do. I don't feel like I'm losing anything. I feel like I'm gaining space and doing a mitzvah at the same time.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie. So, Marjorie, go for it.
I'm sorry. Again, I don't know where my hand icon is. I'm sorry, Sue. I'm also thinking about for me, I have been downsizing like over the last like 30 years. You know, I went from X size of a place to an X this size. I'm now in a small apartment. And by purging and getting rid of things and having less space for for the physical, I am finding that I am making more space in my life for the net, you know, at my age for spiritual. That's really, oh, why am I like so okay there? Um yeah, I've just really found I'm creating more space for a spiritual life for myself. That I've learned to let go of stuff, and it may be an age factor, but it's a really good feeling. It's become really, you know, and more of a creative spiritual space in my life. So I'm gonna go mute now. I'll go back to.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay, we'll hear from Sue and then see if anyone else wants to share, and then we'll do our closing meditation.
I just wanted to comment. I read one of her books, and one of the things actually that I learned is a way of folding. Okay, yeah, Nancy's check. I learned how to fold my shirts in a certain way that I still do today. That's probably the only thing that, I mean, I remember the joy thing, which worked sort of, but not, you know, it didn't work continuously. But I fold them in a certain way that they're very neat in my drawer, and it makes more space. And I love that. And I learned that. And there's a way to do the socks, which I didn't quite understand, but somehow I got the shirts, the t-shirts, and I still do that today, which is sort of interesting. It just, I think sometimes when you read these things, certain things click for you. You know, like you were saying, the Swiss cheese thing. I love that, Greg. You know, that's what you remember. Well, I remember, I still do today. I fold the shirts. So there you go.
Yeah, she is definitely not a one small step sort of way. There's my Maimonides has a different way of, he says if you're really, really out of balance for something, you can go to an extreme. Like he's like, don't ever go to extremes unless you're super out of balance. You can go to the opposite extreme for a temporary time in order to kind of bring yourself towards balance. So maybe her whole like method, but it's, as Nancy pointed out, there can be some dangers of that too, because you might, like when you're kind of out there at an extreme, you might, you know, do something which you later regret. So my wife and I, we've like, our decluttering method is we will pick like one part of the house, like we're going to go through our mugs. We have too many mugs, they're piled up, and we go through which ones do we like. We each picked the ones we wanted to like. We told our kids, any of these other ones you want to save, and then we gave them away. And so that's been our method, and it's worked really well. Okay, well, thank you all so much again for your flexibility today. So we're going to close the way we always do with a short meditation. So please relax in your seat and close your eyes, taking a deep breath. And a nice leisurely exhale. And leisurely inhale. And leisurely exhale. Just allow yourself to bask in the silence. Allow that feeling of gratitude and satisfaction to settle in. Time spent in community. And a journey with other like-minded souls. When you're ready, you may open your eyes.